This is Thursday Night AMP, the AngryMarks.com podcast. My name is Stevie J, and if you look over there, my co host is Hagen Kirk.
What's up?
Not too much, except everything, because in the world of professional wrestling, it changes on a dime. But I suppose you could say the same about the NFL draft. Everything's changing right now, and that leads to our very first topic tonight. They didn't have to do it. Maybe they thought they had to do it because he was going to be busy with the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, but they beat down Tony Khan on Dynamite this week. The Elite left him laying with the help of Jungle Jack Perry. Now, me personally, I believe that wrestling promoters self inserting themselves into wrestling storylines is a trope as old as time itself. I mean, go back to the AWA. How many angles did Vern Gagne put himself in? Vince McMahon clearly couldn't help himself in WWF. Eric Bischoff couldn't help himself in WCW. This is not unique. They all do it. The question is whether or not they should do it. Hagen, what did you think of the angle? And Tony Khan apparently having a neck brace on after it was all said and done.
Well, when you sent me the list of topics earlier today, first on the list it said Tony Khan takes a beating on Dynamite, and my first response was, and this time it's not the ratings.
Ooh, ouch. Savage.
But it's what he's gonna do. If he thinks that it's going to draw eyes and have people he's really trying to get extra heat on the Elite. There's also the fact that recently Kenny was on Twitch playing video games and talking pretty openly, claimed that he was a bad EVP. He shouldn't even be in that role. He's just a wrestler. And I think that may have just been kind of laying the groundwork for this, kind of trying to play, we're not, I shouldn't do this, we shouldn't be in this role, and then they attack Tony, so now you have some kind of a power struggle thing going.
I see what you're saying. They're trying to build angles offline leading into television, which sometimes is a really great promotional tactic, and other times things that happen on the internet or on live streams, like this one, for example, it doesn't necessarily resonate with the rest of the wrestling world. So you can do those sort of things in a vacuum and they have no meaning. But for the AEW, to give them credit, that's how they launched the promotion in the first place. They built their entire reputation off of, well, Dave Meltzer said we couldn't fill an arena with just the Young Bucks. We'll show him, we'll put a show together, and we'll fill an arena. And they did it, and that was the birth of AEW as we know it. So I can't say taking an angle from online to offline doesn't work. I just don't know if having Tony Khan take a beating and then become, I don't know what he would become at that point. Would he be the Eric Bischoff? Would he be the NWO? Would he be the bad boy? Would he be the babyface Vince McMahon before he turned heel and became Mr. McMahon? I mean, what is Tony Khan's character going to be? And more importantly, do we need Tony Khan to be a character in this program? I think we already got more than enough of Tony Khan doing weekly podcasts and post-show press conferences. I feel like he's almost overexposed at this point. Do we really need him to be a recurring character on television?
I mean, there have been calls from people to take his cell phone away and not let him tweet. So, if people are worried that he's already damaging things possibly from too much there, this could well be a way to try to get some sympathy going on him and
or a way to write him out, maybe just get him off the show so that nobody complains.
Right, that it could be that too. And going back to what Kenny had apparently been saying on Twitch, well, if Kenny's saying that he's a bad EVP, maybe he shouldn't even be one, he should just be a wrestler, but you've got the Bucks attacking Tony maybe they're going to try to set up some kind of a split with the Elite and push Kenny out and maybe bring Jungle Boy in and then have Kenny have a face turn and a separation from the Elite.
Well, I feel like they already did that when they signed Okada and put him in the Elite. I think they were saying at that point, Kenny is not elite. Okada is more elite than Kenny ever was. So I already feel like that dynamic exists to begin with. And I don't think Tony Khan was necessary for that gimmick to be played out.
No, not necessary, but think about all the things folks say about, like, Tony's just like fantasy booking his WWE, 2K, whatever, kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So if he's just, like, hey, I can book whatever I want. This is cool. If he's doing that, then he might be like, hey, I want to be a character too. And
to me, that's always been one of the weaker criticisms of Tony Khan, when people say things like, oh, he's just a money mark who's fantasy booking whatever he wants. Well, isn't every promoter a money mark who's fantasy booking whatever they want? I don't understand that, because if you have the kind of money to run a wrestling promotion or even a corporation to fund a wrestling promotion, you're going to book the things that you want to see. Now, you might hope that your audience wants to see that too. That might be the end goal. But you're also doing what you want to do in charge. And sometimes what you're doing is, I think this is what people want. And sometimes what you're doing is, well, this is what people asked for. We'll give it to them. Like Cody Rhodes, for example. So
right.
I don't find it wrong to say somebody's booking for themselves, because if you're enjoying the product, that's not a bad thing. It's only bad if you're booking for yourself. And to go back to using examples of promoters self-inserting, when you book your son to be a star in the promotion, maybe that's a problem.
Vern and Greg, for example?
Yes, that was the example I was going for. Thank you.
I was just thinking of Dusty just booking himself plenty of times. So
I don't know that I disagree with Dusty booking himself. I disagree with how Dusty booked Dusty finishes for other people, where somebody won a championship and, oh no, Dusty finish, actually didn't change hands.
Yeah, those have definitely gotten overplayed over the years.
Mm-hmm. So, since we're already on the topic of AEW and Tony Khan, you brought up an interesting point in our pre-show chat. You said they have been bringing in people left and right, and yet the audience continues to decline. This week they were under 700,000 viewers, according to Dave Meltzer at Wrestling Observer. And I don't think it's the fault of Swerve Strickland or Tony Storm or the Young Bucks or Jack Perry or any of the people they're booking on the show week to week. But at the same time, when you're paying big money to the likes of Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks, or Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge, and the ratings and the audience size continue to decline, to me, okay, let me clarify this. Personally, I don't care, because if I'm enjoying the product, I don't care what the size of the audience is or the Nielsen rating is. But is it a problem to keep bringing in big names when they don't actually affect the rating? I'm not talking about whether or not I enjoy those people, because I enjoy those people, but are they getting their money's worth out of what they're spending?
I mean, they've had Mercedes around for, what was it about a month ago that she had her official debut in Boston?
Yeah, close to that. It was the big business in Boston a month ago.
She hasn't actually wrestled yet. She's been out there, talking some. There's been like some vignettes or whatever, but like no actual wrestling from someone who is regarded as one of the better women wrestlers around right now.
The closest
Like,
we've gotten to her wrestling is her issuing a challenge to Willow Nightingale for Double or Nothing.
right. So her first match is coming up,
Mm.
but still, like, uh, you know, Okada got signed, and he was in the match pretty soon after. Like they got him right out there. I wonder, which makes me wonder if um, Mercedes was not entirely cleared to wrestle yet, but they wanted to go ahead and start getting her on TV.
I think it would be reasonable to suspect that, but it doesn't necessarily go to the heart of the matter of whether or not they shouldn't have even put her on television at all, regardless of whether she was ready or not, if she's not moving the needle.
Yeah, and both AEW and WWE have huge rosters right now. The difference is that WWE will actually release wrestlers, and Tony had said for ages that he wouldn't release people, but then did release people recently, and that made a lot of people mad. But it's like, what else is he going to do? He keeps forking over money. They announced a loss last year of, what was it, $34 million, something like that.
Which is nothing when you've got billions in the bank. That's
Right.
that's the other reason I get mad when people say, "Oh, AEW is losing money." I'm like, Tony doesn't care. He's got the money to burn.
He does, but if they've got their TV deal coming back up in the near future, and you've got to consider if the folks who are in talks with them of are we going to re-sign you guys, or are we going to let you go somewhere else? If they see, hey, here's a product that doesn't actually turn a profit, how are we going to attract advertisers that we want? If you're not seen as valuable, you won't be valuable. Perception is important there.
True.
So that could have an effect on all that.
And declining ratings and declining audience viewership would definitely not lend themselves to getting a renewal for big money. However, I would say that has been proven to be demonstrably false when you look at WWE and how their audience size for Raw has gone from multi-millions a decade, 2 decades ago, to 1.5 to 2 million on a weekly basis, and yet they get increases every single time they renew. And the theory, or so I've heard, you can correct me on this, is that audience retention is what they're paying for. You get the big deals because they want those loyal viewers. Like, that 1.5 million who's there is worth more than the 5 million who aren't there. I don't understand that, but that's the theory.
If they have advertisers in a certain bracket that they want, and they're able to maintain certain numbers in those demographics that they're trying to advertise to, then their advertisers are going to be happy, and thus they're going to be happy. Now, yes, it's possible that the total viewership, a decade or two ago was higher, but cable TV's viewership in general was higher then too. I would wager that it's probable, based on the total number of people watching every night now versus back then, with as many people as have cut the cord and we don't even watch it. We don't even have USA or Fox. We just watch Netflix. It's possible that the total percentage of the viewership is actually larger right now than it was back then, when they actually had more people watching it.
And you're right about the demos too, because they sell advertising to those key target demos, like that 18 to 49 demo. If you're number one in that demo for the night, they can command way more for advertising. Although how that's going to work with Netflix, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. You've got the possibility that Netflix then says, we're going to have some ads during WWE. Or they're going to say, you know what, we've got a really strong product here. We don't need ads. We're getting people into our app or onto our website to watch this. And while they're here, they notice, oh, this movie just started showing this week. Hey, a new season of this show that I like just hit Netflix. And there's that holdover audience you were talking about. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when you've got a TV show, like let's say you got Thursday night NBC, the classic there. You put a new show on to follow whatever's on 8 o'clock, like Friends is on 8 or something, and then like, oh, we got to put something in here at 8:30. You want to see a lot of people stick around from that show and watch the next one, so it can boost up the next show. And then you want people to stay from that one, and oh, this I'm already here, and this is on. It's great. I'm going to watch that too. So if you have WWE on and you have a strong rating, and then what's on immediately after that drops off, it's not going to look great on the other show. So
No.
just like if WWE follows something that has a big rating and it tanks when WWE comes on, that doesn't look good for them. So,
But I think you're right. Netflix is looking at platforming people on board and getting them to pay $15 to $20 a month because they'll buy it for Raw and then they'll stick around for the other shows. That's their whole idea. But I think Peacock had the same idea when they bought WWE Network. They were like, oh, these people will come in for whatever premium live events we have, but they'll stick around for the other things. And yeah, they grew the audience size of Peacock pretty quickly to 30, 40 million subscribers, but then they started running ads during the premium live events, which I feel is how it's going to go with Netflix. Like, they may say, oh, this is a live stream of a premium event that we signed exclusively, but it almost seems like you'd have to have commercial breaks in there because what else is Michael Cole going to do but go, and we'll be back, Raw is live, and then they cut during the middle of a match. That's their formula. That's what they know how to do. The wrestlers, what are they going to do if they don't have that downtime in the middle of a match where they're not live on camera? Maybe they'll do picture in picture like AEW does, but at the same time, I can't see them not having some kind of commercial breaks.
I mean, you'll have less headlocks and bear hug situations happening in matches if you don't have commercials.
Yeah.
Um,
And no more chin locks for Randy Orton.
Yep. You've got those usual delaying tactics. I think if you didn't have ads, then you could still have either the match might end up being slightly shorter than it would have been, or they space the spots out a little bit differently if you still want to keep similar time to the match. But I think you could take Raw to a 2-hour show because you don't have 45 minutes of commercials.
Well, it's too long at 3 hours anyway, so I wouldn't object to that, but
There are some weeks where they make the 3 hours work. Like the show after WrestleMania was really good.
well, they needed to be 3 hours because that segment with The Rock and Cody was almost the entire first hour.
Yeah, The Rock was definitely eating as much time as he could when he was out there. Every time he was out there.
Yes. Now, you mentioned that AEW always said, we'll never release anybody, but then they started releasing a whole bunch of people. Let's segue that to Cameron Grimes. 5 days before he was released, was told, you'll always have a job in WWE. Now,
I missed that one.
yeah, he said this in a recent interview. I put the link on my Facebook page if you want to check that out, but you don't have to do it now during the show. The whole point is, pardon my French, what a shitty thing to tell him. You'll have a job here for life, and then cut him less than a week later. Wow.
I mean, that could be a little bit of left hand, right hand,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. But yeah, I mean, I saw a little clip of his video that he posted announcing that he got let go, and dude was hurting hard.
Yeah, he was very emotional about it. Reminded me of that same situation we got when oh shoot, now I'm drawing a blank on his name. But he used to be in TNA wrestling as Eli Drake's sidekick. You probably know who I'm talking about. And he got signed to WWE and then cut, and he had a very emotional video about it, and then they brought him back, and then eventually they cut him again. But you're drawing a blank on who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Doesn't matter.
Chris Adonis?
Sorry, what?
Chris Adonis?
No, that's the Masterpiece. That's not who I'm talking about. Anyway, okay. I can look it up here, but while
it talks being Eli Drake's sidekick when I Googled, so that's why I was like, is that him? So, all right.
No, that wasn't who I meant. But anyway, it just seems like they missed the boat on Cameron Grimes in a big, big way. It's like he was super over with that NXT audience. He had a great connection with the people. He was a phenomenal in-ring wrestler, which we already knew because he was Trevor Lee and a former X Division champion in TNA, speaking of TNA. So people told me offline that he had been wrestling since the early 2010s. I think you might have mentioned that as well. So it's not like he hadn't paid his dues and worked his way into being on the NXT roster. He was talented, he had charisma, and he should have been a surefire main roster hit. Should have.
I think you kind of hit on what the issue is. How many times have we seen someone's doing great on NXT, they come up to the main roster and go nowhere? Now, sometimes that was like Vince and like Karrion Kross, for example. But to be honest, Karrion Kross has been back for a while. It's kind of treaded water. Had a little bit here and there. Had a bit of a feud with Drew, and then the recent thing with Bobby and the Prophets, and stuff. But, it hasn't really been doing anything too huge. Again, you have a large roster. You've got a couple of shows. You got 3 shows, and it sounds like WWE is working towards making NXT feel more like an actual third leg of the chair instead of just being developmental, and there's the 2 main shows, which if they're actively working towards that, and we see a little more shuffling between the main brands and NXT, could make the draft. Nice segue. Be very interesting. Oh, and here's Skylar.
Hi, Skylar. How's it going?
Good. Just about to go play Fortnite, so yeah.
All right, enjoy. So yes, we've got 2 drafts going on simultaneously, as you just mentioned. NFL draft and WWE draft. But the WWE draft, and I was telling Peter this on Glove Up or Shut Up yesterday, it feels so, I'm going to just use the word pointless, because you're being drafted from WWE to WWE. They're not really drafting people. They're not bringing in the top names of independent wrestling. They're not signing undiscovered free agents. They're not finding college recruits and saying, you're a WWE superstar, you're joining our team. That's not what they do.
I mean, that's kind of, they've got the whole NIL thing going now. So that's kind of part of what they're doing for the new talent. But, they first came up with the draft, what was it? Early 2000s?
Mm-hmm.
Right after the WCW acquisition. It was just a way that they can, every year or so, generate some excitement and some extra interest in, hey, who's going to be where? But it was just a few months ago that they said, "Hey, we're doing the brand split, and it's going to be a thing. You're gonna, we're gonna have people. They're dedicated to this one. They're dedicated to that one, and then not really. We're gonna have Cody on here on both shows every week, which, I mean, come on, he's so over right now. You got to worry about overexposing him, but it's gonna get you numbers, so it wasn't a terrible plan. But it seems a little silly. And of course, if you only have one women's tag belt, well, they're going to have to float between the shows, or you're going to introduce a second tag belt. So if they're going to use the draft to build up NXT and turn it into a real third brand and have start mixing the three a little more, like, I could see if they have NXT actually becoming a real competitor with Raw and SmackDown. The Royal Rumble next year, we won't just have like a couple of guys from NXT in the Rumble. You might have NXT matches actually happening on the Rumble show. Maybe we don't have separate NXT shows in the future. Maybe we have NXT as part of the pay-per-views. But the pay-per-views are already crowded enough. You kind of need the NXT shows to be there just to handle some of the extra load.
Do you think it's telling that SmackDown and Raw can draft from NXT, but NXT can't draft from Raw or SmackDown?
I think it's going to be different this year. There's already been talk that you're going to see more talent moving down into NXT and building that up. Like, think about the people we've had go down to NXT, whether for just like a few episodes here and there or for an extended run. You had the Judgment Day wrestle on there. You had Dominic Mysterio win the belt and hold it for a little while there. You've had an extended stay for Baron Corbin. Natalya showed up on NXT. Like, you've had a lot of people come down from the main roster and stay on NXT for a bit, and not because we need to work on them in the ring. They're going down there because they're a face. They might be popular with the NXT crowd, and they can, put more asses in seats.
Well, putting asses in seats is something Tony Khan would like to do when they only sell like 1,500 or 3,000 tickets for a weekly episode of Dynamite or Collision. That would be... Again, he's got the money to burn, but when you talk about putting asses in seats, they don't have a problem filling up arenas for Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. And I mean, I know NXT is mostly run out of one venue in Florida, but when they do their house shows, they draw big crowds, and when they do their premium live events, well, other than the one that's going to be at the Apex, because they can't even have a crowd in there, but generally speaking, when they have their premium live events, NXT draws well.
Yeah, I know the last 3 years we've had 2 Raw and a SmackDown come to Louisville, and if those weren't sold out, they were very close to it. Like, they've done great business every time they've come to town here the last few years. I was at the 2 Raws, didn't get to make it at the SmackDown, but yeah, they're selling lots of tickets. They're selling tons of merch. That's usually what indicates that a wrestling company is successful to the outside world.
Very true, very true. So, I lost my place here because I was looking up something and I came across Hornswoggle, and it's like, Hornswoggle is not the guy I was thinking of.
Do we want to go back to a question of overrated that you had in your list?
Oh, yes, that is true. Thank you for bringing me back on point here, because there's been a lot of complaining lately about Will Ospreay always getting 5 stars, 6 stars, whatever amount of stars from the Wrestling Observer. And yes, he had a fantastic match with Bryan Danielson at the Dynasty pay-per-view on Sunday, which people were immediately calling instant classic and best match of the year. But then as soon as Dave Meltzer started saying how great it was, the backlash came. Oh, Dave says everything Will Ospreay does is 5 stars. Well, you can't have it both ways, people. You can say he's great, but then as soon as somebody in the wrestling press says he's great, then you've got to be contrarian and say, oh no, he's not as good as that. Is he? I mean, let's get your opinion. Do you think he's overrated, or do you think he's as good as all the hype?
I haven't seen that many of Ospreay's matches, but when I've seen him wrestle, he's been really good. I don't have a problem with him having good ratings. I do question Meltzer a bit on just maybe a little bit of bias. Because when was the last 5-star rating that was given to any WWE match by him? Has it been in this decade? Has it been in last decade?
I don't have a list in front of me, so I can't give a fair answer to that.
Don't believe that he.
And you're looking it up yourself, so.
Yes. So, list of matches that are 5-star or more from Meltzer. So, let's see if any of these are WWE. If it's New Japan or AEW, there's lots of them. Like, just this year alone, he's already given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And those were anywhere from 5 to a 6. And Michael Oku and Will Ospreay at Rev Pro was a 6. The one, and this only goes to March 6th, so it's possible. Did he not give one to the Danielson match? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
But yeah, I'm scrolling through. Oh, here we go. He has given a couple of 5s. The Gunther, Drew, Sheamus, WrestleMania 39, and the KO and Sammy versus the Usos. Those are both 5s. Those are both WrestleMania 39. But
Okay.
they're extremely rare that he gives them in WWE, it feels like. And I think that he has a particular bias to certain types of wrestling. And those are the ones that he's going to rate highly. And Will wrestles in a style that he is more likely to rate highly. So when the internet barometer for highly rated matches boils down a lot of the times to one particular guy and the ratings that he gives, and people use him as the baseline, then yeah, he fits his biases of what is a great wrestler and a great wrestling match. So he's going to have more 5-star match ratings from him.
I think you're right.
I don't know if, I can't say personally whether he is overrated or not. I think he's a great wrestler. I think that he definitely puts on some fantastic matches. And so guys like Kenny, people are like, he just has 5-star after 5-star, and it's like, well, yeah, but again, same kind of, a similar style of match that Meltzer prefers and is going to be more inclined to give a high rating to.
Which, in its own way, I think raises a question. Is he required? Is there some sort of rule that you can't have favorites if you work in the professional wrestling press? Like, I don't know that you'd say you work in it or I work in it, but Bryan Danielson has been a favorite of mine since the 2000s. And when I watch Bryan Danielson wrestle, I'm probably going to be more inclined to like his matches because of my familiarity with him. Am I required to say, no, I can't like a Bryan Danielson match because I would rate it too highly? Is Dave expected to do that for Will Ospreay?
I don't think so. I think that you know, there are times where possibly disclaimers might want to be attached, like, you know, it seems like he is pretty chummy with the Elite, for example. And so when he rates one of their matches really highly, there's people that know this will think, wait a second, how much of this is because, you know, he's their friends, or he thinks if he gives them a high rating, it's going to get him maybe some more info from them in the future, and how much of it is he honestly thought that was a really great match. So, you know, your biases can definitely cloud your opinion with other people. You have the same thing with actual newscasters and stuff. You know, you've got people, you know, somebody's on CNN, and, you know, if people, a lot of people consider that CNN is left of center, which it probably is left of center. But it's not crazy, wacko, you know, lefty world by any means. But then, you know, you have someone who is pretty right wing that's on the channel for obvious views. You know, people are going to say, okay, well, you know, what does this mean with that? They've got this guy on here. How much of that is just to placate that certain audience? How much of it is, you know, where does that line fall?
Mm-hmm. I think the line is pretty easy to delineate in Dave's case, because I know you said he's chummy with the Elite. I wouldn't even dispute that. Maybe he would. But I think there are plenty enough people working in AEW, WWE, and any other promotion who would gladly give Dave information on their booking plans, who's hurt, what's going on backstage. I don't think he needs to hand out 5-star ratings in exchange for information. I don't think there's a quid pro quo there. I'm laughing at the idea. I'm not laughing at you saying it, but I'm laughing at the idea that Dave would give out 5 stars just to get a scoop.
Well, maybe not information. Maybe, you know, maybe there's other things like, you know, oh, hey, you know, we got this thing that, you know, would be really collectible. Here, you can have it and, you know, keep it for your collection kind of stuff. That maybe, hey, that wouldn't have happened otherwise. I don't know. You know, there's...
I'm pretty sure he's got more memorabilia than you and me put together. I don't think he needs freebies.
Oh, probably not. But, you know, at the same time, if you're a hard collector, maybe you take them anyway. So, but I don't know. I don't know his personal relationships. There's plenty of people that talk about those things on Twitter and such. And I've seen, you know, some theories like that thrown around. So, hey, you know, it's part of the discussion.
And I think a lot of it is just plain jealousy. If we're being honest, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who are mad at Dave because he gets information that other people don't. And even when he gets it wrong, they're like, ha ha, look, Dave got it wrong. That's just their jealousy speaking, because they want so badly to see Dave fail.
Some people hate the dirt sheets and they want to see the dirt sheets fail. And, you know, some people love them because they want to have every little bit of inside information they can get. You know, like, yeah, it's fun for sure, knowing some of that backstage stuff. Kind of like, you know, I like when a trailer for a movie is done well. Like, I just walked out of the movie and I realized that the trailer actually told me 80% of the film because they put too much into it. You know, that's a poor trailer, because you're not selling the movie then. You actually just told the entire story and made some people feel like they didn't even need to go because enough of it was right there. So you have to entice people with it. And I think that, you know, you have to worry about that.
There is a fine line, and I've said this before on social, and I think you saw it, where I said The older I get, the less I need to know about how the sausage is made. I just want to enjoy it. I get that way with pro wrestling where it's like it's fun to know some of these things thanks to the dirt sheets and thanks to the fine websites like PW Insider and the Torch and all the
And
different
they're
various and Fightful, yes, and all the other sites. But I wouldn't put us at the top of breaking news or anything. We're not one of those sites like Fightful. I would say it's fun to know, but it's also fun to not know. Like, I want to know, as an example, what order the matches are going to be at WrestleMania, but I don't want to know the finishes of every one of those matches. I want to guess. I want to think about what I would like to see, think about what they would like to do, weigh those options in my head, and come to a conclusion. If I'm told the result ahead of time, then what interest do I have in seeing how it turns out?
Yeah, I know. Sometimes you get frustrated. Like Peter and I will start kind of speculating on things, and like what would we do? For me, it's less. I'm like you. I don't want to know. Like this is the actual outcome that's going to happen. We've got it passed down. This guy's gonna go over. I don't want to know that, but I like having enough knowledge of the characters and what's happening to be able to make the educated guess and then see was I correct, because it's fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll still send you that stuff, and you might be like, I'm busy right now, whatever, and I'm like, that's cool, I just want to get that out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you end up not wanting to talk about it, that's cool. I'll put it out there, and then I can always check myself. It's like if I was making predictions for pay-per-view, cool, I was pretty much right. Like WrestleMania, I didn't know which tag teams were necessarily going to have it, but I was sure they were going to take them off Judgment Day and they were going to split them back up. Basically got everything for both nights correct. So, and that was fun for me. I was like, hey, I'm pretty much batted 1,000 in this WrestleMania.
I almost prefer to not bat 1,000 though. Like, if I want some of the big things that I want to take place, like Cody winning the world title. There was no way I was going to be satisfied with night 2 if that didn't happen. But at the same time, I don't want to get every single thing right. I want to be surprised. When I saw A-Town Down Under won the tag team titles, I was like, I did not expect that. That was a pleasant surprise to me. That like you said, they were going to take the tag team titles off Judgment Day, but I didn't even think that A-Town Down Under was established enough as a team to warrant putting tag team titles on them, and they proved me wrong.
I think part of that was just a simple matter of they realized that after his couple of U.S. title reigns that he had, they really haven't been doing a very good job with Theory recently, and getting him with Grayson Waller was at least getting him back on TV and getting something happening again. So you put a belt on him and you give him another opportunity to, show us that you can be the guy that Vince thought you were going to be, because he was definitely a Vince push.
I almost think it's the opposite, though. I think Austin Theory is the stepping stone for Grayson Waller. I think that's the guy they're really hot on because they gave him his own talk show. They booked angles leading into the show in Perth for him. I mean, to me, it seems like they think he's going to be the future of the company. Well,
but when Vince was there and Theory came up to the main roster, there was a lot of talk that Theory was the future of the company, but he also had a personal push from Vince.
Right. So they did skits together. That's how far that went.
Yeah. So, you have a Vince guy in an era where Vince is gone. And, maybe Grayson was more of a Triple H guy. I don't know. But to be fair, Elimination Chamber was in Australia, and he's from Australia. They're going to try and boost him to play with the home audience. Like, look at Elimination Chamber was basically Rhea Ripley, the pay-per-view. You had her colors. You had her and Dom were back in Australia like a month before, starting all kinds of interviews and feeding Dom Australian food.
Oh yeah, when they tried Vegemite, I saw that video.
That was hilarious, and like fairy toast and whatever, and like just all this stuff. And she didn't expect him to like hardly any of it, and he surprised her. But they did a lot of press down there, and they had and then she had fantastic match. Like you couldn't have had a better homecoming show for her to kind of coordinate her and her current place in the company.
Which I almost think is an illustration of it being the Triple H era, because in the Vince McMahon era, he would have sent her to her hometown and had her lose.
I was gonna be so mad if that happened. Not gonna lie, I was dreading that. But that also goes. You were saying how like with Night 2, you wouldn't have been happy if Cody hadn't won, and my thoughts on that. I've been ready for him to lose the belt since it was him, Edge, and Danielson in Hell in a Cell. But I thought that having Cody lose and have it be bloodline rules was the most sensible way to take Night 2. But there is a case that could have been made, if they had said, no, we're going to have the good guys win on Night 1, and we are going to ban the bloodline. Maybe they would have had to put them in a freaking cage. I don't know. Like, how were they going to keep them? Were they going to have, like, a bunch of guys around the ring, lumberjack style, and then you sneak somebody who isn't currently in the bloodline, like, Tama Tonga, like, have him debut a little bit earlier at WrestleMania to try to screw things over? What do you do to keep them away? So there was a good argument that could be made for them to go either way. I think the way they went was the way that made the most sense, because you're putting the hero behind the eight ball that much more. Like, they lose on Night 1, it's the end of Empire Strikes Back. And then,
he wins on Night 2, it's Return of the Jedi. Yeah.
Is the end of Jedi,
Mm-hmm. It is. It was the storybook ending, quite literally. So, speaking of storybook endings, we're coming up on the top of the hour, so we might have to wrap it up for our topics this week. But it's been fun as always, Hagen, and I look forward to doing it next week, and Arya should be joining us then as well. But do you want to plug anything before you go?
No, I don't really have anything. I'm currently excited because this next week is my finals for my second semester back at school, and I'll be done for the summer. So
awesome.
Off until August with another semester. But
well, you should treat yourself. You should go catch an OVW show immediately after you finish those finals.
I was actually streaming OVW on YouTube. They were showing it on there tonight because next week they're actually doing a pay-per-view live from downtown at they got stuff going on for Derby all next week.
Oh.
And you can buy a Pegasus pin to get access to the whole downtown area. They got things all roped off and whatever, and there's vendors and all kinds of different stuff. They're actually doing a pay-per-view and a live wrestling event downtown next week. And they were pointing out to people, like, you don't have to buy tickets, just get a Pegasus pin and come on down. So that's very
good. Orlando. Like Universal Studios would do that for the Impact taping when I was there. Like, you buy a ticket to the park, and while you're here, come to the Impact taping.
Well, this year apparently is the 30th anniversary of OVW, and it's the 150th Kentucky Derby. So they got numbers lining up nicely for that.
Well, then by all means, go check that out. That'd be a fun time.
Yeah, Enzo Amore is in OVW currently wrestling as Real One.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been working as Real One on the Independents for a while.
Dude, there's a guy. The guy that he's going up against is Shotgun Tony Gunn, and for whatever reason, when I first started going to OVW, Tony Gunn just rubbed me the wrong way, and I was, booing him. Most of the audience was cheering him. He's been a heel. He's a face again now, but Enzo had a video thing that he taped and for them, and then I think he was actually on location there showing the video, and he at one point said Tony Gunn shoots blanks, and I said, I've been saying that for over 2 years. Enzo can have it. But I was just like, somebody else is saying it now. Sweet.
Stole your punchline.
Exactly, but it was funny, so that was worth it. He screwed him out of a title not too long ago. So,
well, Enzo is kind of a natural heel. People love to hate him. So,
yeah, he's good at that. So,
well, hopefully people don't say that about us. I prefer being a babyface. I don't work good as a heel.
Yeah, I can't really see you doing a heel.
No, not in my. That's the weirdest thing about having a site called Angry Marks is I'm a pretty jovial guy, but the people I started this site with were pretty angry, so that was the name we chose.
Oh, I remember our group in on Iska BBS for all the old folks out there.
Yep. Good old Nikes the Sneaker Pimp. He was one of the original Angry Marks.
Yep, I remember having lots and lots of discussions in the forum with everybody when you guys were starting it.
Yeah, I actually took a TAS 189 poster to a wrestling show, but I don't think it ever made it on the air.
Nice.
All right, on that note, since we've confused everybody with that reference, I'm going to say for Hank and Kirk, this is Stevie J. Thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you again next week. Good night.